The countdown has begun. In this moment, across the planet, the world's most powerful eyes are all turning to stare at a single, fast-moving point of light. From the high deserts of Chile to the orbiting platforms above our atmosphere, every major observatory is locked on target. The air in control rooms is thick with attention that goes beyond mere scientific curiosity. This is a vigil. We are counting down the final days, the final hours, to the 29th of October 2025. This date is not just another mark on the calendar. It is a 0 hour, a moment of judgment, because on that day, an object from interstellar space, designated 3I Atlas, will reach perihelion. It will make its closest, most violent approach to our Sun, a crucible waiting at 1.356 astronomical units. And in that fiery passage, a question that has haunted humanity for decades may finally be answered. We are not just waiting to see what a comet will do. We are waiting to find out what it is. This is not a routine observation. It is a test, and the results will either confirm what we know about the universe or shatter our understanding of it entirely. To understand why the world is holding its breath, you must first understand that 3I Atlas is not a normal visitor. It has violated the fundamental laws of celestial motion. When it was first detected, it was just another faint blip. Its interstellar origin, calculated from a trajectory that was impossibly fast, impossibly open. It was not bound to our Sunday. It was a tourist, just passing through. But then, it did something that comets are not supposed to do. It began to slow down. As it plunged towards the Sun, its velocity began to decrease in a way that defied gravitational models. It was, for all intents and purposes, hitting the brakes. This deceleration, this non-gravitational force, was the first red flag. It was a mystery that baffled astronomers. And then came the images. On July 21, 2025, the Hubble Space Telescope captured a stunning, terrifying portrait. 3I Atlas was venting material, but it was venting it in the wrong direction. It was firing a bright, coherent jet of gas and dust towards the Sun, against the relentless torrent of solar radiation and solar wind. It was fighting gravity. It looked less like a passive, melting iceberg, and more like a craft executing a braking burn. But the anomaly didn't stop there. As summer turned to fall, astronomers at the Nordic Optical Telescope tracked the object relentlessly, and they watched, in slow-motion disbelief, as the impossible happened again. Frame by frame, week by week, they documented the sun-facing jet growing fainter, sputtering, and finally dying. And then, from the opposite side of the object, a new tail began to grow. A classical, correct tail, streaming away from the Sun, pushed by solar radiation, just as textbook physics predicts. It had performed a jet inversion. It had flipped its entire propulsion axis 180 degrees. This wasn't a random tumble. The transition was too clean. The object had decelerated, reoriented, and then began to accelerate. Astronomers, struggling for a term, called it an intrinsic change, but that sterile language fails to capture the profound and terrifying implication. This object appeared to be under intelligent control, and so we arrive at the crucible. October 29th, the perihelion. This is the moment of truth, where all theories will be tested by the unforgiving physics of our star. At 1.356 AU, 3I Atlas will be subjected to the full, unfiltered fury of the Sunday. The thermal shock will be immense. The gravitational stresses will try to tear it apart. And at this moment of maximum stress, Only two fates are possible. The first, and by far the most likely, is disintegration. This is the fate of countless comets before it. We remember Comet Ison, the comet of the century in 2013, which flew too close and was vaporized into nothing but dust and memory. We remember the fragments of Shoemaker-Levy 9, torn to shreds by Jupiter's gravity before their fiery plunge. If 3I Atlas is just an exotic but natural interstellar comet, a fragile ball of ice and dust from another star, this is its funeral. The intense heat will violently sublimate its remaining ices. The internal pressure will build. The thermal stress will find every crack and every fault line, and it will shatter. It will detonate in a brief, spectacular flash, ending the mystery in a silent, expanding cloud of interstellar debris. This is the safe, expected, and comforting scientific outcome. But there is a second fate. What if it doesn't shatter? What if it holds together? What if it endures the solar furnace with an impossible integrity, a robustness that no natural comet should possess? What if this object is not a fragile ball of ice at all, but something solid, dense, and manufactured? If that is the case, then perihelion is not a test of fragility. It is a maneuver. The bizarre braking and jet inversion were not death throes. They were calculated orbital corrections. They were the actions of a probe, lining up its trajectory for a perfect gravitational slingshot. Using the sun's immense gravity as a pivot point, it will whip around our star, stealing orbital energy to accelerate itself, saving precious fuel as it banks hard towards its next unknown destination. The choice before us is that stark. On October 29th, are we witnessing a celestial funeral, or are we witnessing a refueling stop? This is why this countdown matters. This is why it is more than just an astronomical curiosity. This single event has become a live-action, high-stakes test of the Fermi paradox. For nearly a century, we have stared into the silent void and asked the most profound question: where is everybody? That cosmic silence has been deafening. It has led us to dark and terrifying conclusions about our own place in the universe. The great filter theory, the chilling idea that some inevitable barrier prevents civilizations from rising, evolving, and crossing the stars. That civilizations, like our own, are doomed to destroy themselves or be destroyed before they can ever make contact. If 3I Atlas shatters on October 29th, the silence continues. It was just a rock. The universe remains empty, and the great filter looms as large and as terrifying as ever. We are, for all practical purposes, still alone. But if it survives, if it holds together, and, most critically, if it maneuvers after perihelion, everything we thought we knew is wrong. It would mean that someone else, something else, beat the filter. It would mean the technology to cross the vast, cold emptiness between stars is not science fiction. It is real. It would mean the silence we have been listening to is not an absence of life, but merely a conversation we are not yet advanced enough to join. The stakes, then, are quite simply everything. Our philosophy, our religion, our science, and our entire sense of self will be redefined. We are no longer just passive observers. We are waiting for an answer. If these mysteries, if these existential stakes have you on the edge of your seat the way they have us, then join this vigil. This isn't a story you just watch. It's a story you must participate in. This is unfolding in real time for all of humanity. Hit that like button and subscribe right now, and be sure to turn on all notifications. You will not want to miss a single update, not a single image, as this story develops moment by critical moment. And tell us in the comments below, right now, what is your gut feeling? What is your prediction? Will 3I Atlas shatter under the sun's fury, or will it complete its gravitational slingshot and continue its journey? Where in the world are you watching this countdown from? And what do you truly believe is unfolding right now, just beyond our sight? Share this video. Share it on X, on Facebook, on Reddit, or just with a friend who still looks up at the night sky and wonders. Your voice, your engagement, is what allows us to keep tracking this impossible story. For that, thank you. Chapter I, the Solar System's Furnace. To truly comprehend the drama unfolding on October 29th, one must first understand the battlefield. The adversary in this story is not a creature, nor is it an intelligence. The adversary is a place, a concept, a gauntlet of pure physics. It is called Perihelion. The word itself sounds gentle, a technical whisper in an astronomy textbook. It simply means the point in an orbit closest to the Sunday. But in reality, it is a furnace. It is a region of space where the laws of nature become weapons, and where the universe's most fundamental forces conspire to annihilate any visitor who dares to trespass. 3I Atlas is now plunging directly into this furnace, aimed at a distance of 1.356 astronomical units. This number sounds abstract, so let us make it real. An astronomical unit, or AU, is the distance from the Earth to the Sunday. 3I Atlas will pass well inside that boundary, at a range of approximately 203 million kilometers. While this is not a sun grazer in the class of comets that skim the sun's very atmosphere, it is a catastrophic plunge for an object born in the absolute zero blackness of interstellar space. It is close enough for the sun's three great weapons to be brought to bear with overwhelming force. The first and most relentless of these weapons is gravity. We tend to think of gravity as a simple, uniform pull, the force that anchors us to our chairs. But on a cosmic scale, it is a savage and differential force. The sun does not just pull on 3I Atlas. It pulls on every part of it differently. The side of the object facing the sun is pulled fractions of a percent more powerfully than the side facing away. This differential is known as a tidal force. It is the same force that raises oceans on Earth, but for an object like a comet, which is not a solid, monolithic chunk of iron, it is a torture device. It is the cosmic equivalent of being stretched on the rack. If 3I Atlas is, like most comets, a rubble pile, a loose agglomeration of smaller ice boulders and rocks, held together by their own feeble, shared gravity, these tidal forces will be devastating. The sun's gravity will not pull the object as one. It will instead try to pull each of its constituent pieces away from the others. It will find every loose joint, every uncompacted void, and pull. This force is subtle but inescapable, and it grows exponentially stronger with proximity. It is the silent, invisible giant, trying to pry the object apart, atom by atom, boulder by boulder, long before the other weapons even arrive. The second weapon is radiation. The sun is a nuclear fusion reactor, converting millions of tons of matter into pure energy every second. This energy is blasted outward in all directions as a torrent of photons. This is not just gentle light, it is a physical, kinetic force. This radiation pressure is a constant, sandblasting wind of high-energy particles. For a large, dense object like a planet, this pressure is negligible, but for the tiny dust grains in a comet's coma, this pressure is everything. It is what physically pushes the tail away from the Sunday. As 3I Atlas gets closer, This pressure becomes a physical barrier. But the true killer is not the kinetic force. It is the sheer energy density. The intensity of this energy follows the ruthless inverse square law. This law is simple and brutal. If you halve your distance to the sun, the energy you receive increases by a factor of 4. As 3I, Atlas plunges from the cold darkness of interstellar space. It is not just getting warmer, it is being subjected to an exponential assault. The energy flux it will endure at perihelion is orders of magnitude greater than anything it has ever experienced in its millions or billions of years of existence. This is a shock, a thermal bombardment that is instantaneous and absolute. This bombardment leads to the third and most insidious weapon: heat. The surface of 3I Atlas will be superheated by this radiation, with exposed areas potentially reaching temperatures far above the boiling point of water. This heat does not just sit on the surface, it attempts to penetrate the object, creating a thermal wave that moves inward. The problem is that a comet is one of the best insulators in the universe. Its porous, icy structure is a terrible conductor of heat. This means that while the outer millimeters of the object are being flash-boiled, the interior, just meters below, remains frozen at a temperature near absolute zero. This temperature differential is a bomb. The superheated outer layers try to expand rapidly. The cryogenically frozen interior refuses to budge. The resulting thermal stress creates fractures, fissures, and cracks that spiderweb through the object's core. The comet is trying to tear itself apart from the inside out, a battle between its own superheated skin and its frozen heart. And this heat, this stress, triggers the visible effect we call activity, sublimation. This is the process where ice, when heated in a vacuum, does not melt into a liquid. It explodes directly into a gas. The ice inside 3I Atlas will flash vaporize, expanding in volume 1,000-fold in an instant. This gas, trapped below the surface, will build in pressure until it finds a weak point, a fissure, a crack, perhaps one of the fractures just created by the thermal stress. It then erupts. This is not a gentle, steaming mist. It is a high-velocity, supersonic jet of gas and dust, a cryovolcano exploding into space. These jets, as we have already seen, are powerful. They are the non-gravitational forces that baffled astronomers. They act as uncontrolled, asymmetrical rocket engines, firing at random from all over the nucleus. They spin the object up, increasing the rotational stress, which in turn widens the fractures and makes it easier for tidal forces to gain purchase. The heat creates jets, and the jets create more stress, which exposes more ice to the heat, which creates more jets. It is a catastrophic feedback loop. Perihelion is simply the moment this feedback loop is turned up to its absolute maximum. The furnace is not just a place of external assault, it is a place that turns the object's own composition against itself, arming it with self-destructive mechanisms. If you believe this is theoretical, you are mistaken. The solar system is littered with the corpses of those who failed this test. We have a name for this battlefield: the Comet Graveyard. It is a long, tragic history of bright promises and silent deaths, and every astronomer watching 3I Atlas knows this history by heart. We all remember Comet Ison. In 2013, it was hailed as the comet of the century. Like 3I Atlas, it was a pristine, first-time visitor from the Oort cloud, the deep freeze reservoir of our own solar system. Its orbit was a death sentence, a true sungrazer that would pass a mere 1.2 million kilometers from the sun's surface. The hype was immense. It brightened spectacularly on its approach, promising a show that would rival the full moon. The world watched as it rounded the Sunday, and then nothing. It never re-emerged. Telescopes sensitive enough to see a matchstick in the dark stared at the point where it was supposed to be, and they saw only a faint, dispersing cloud of dust. The furnace had done its job. The heat and tidal forces had not just broken Ison apart, they had vaporized it. It was erased from existence. It became a ghost, a cautionary tale that hangs over every new discovery. But an object doesn't need to fly that close to die. The sun's furnace has a long reach. Consider Comet C 2019Y4 Atlas, a different comet that coincidentally shares the same Discovery program's name. In early 2020, this comet was also the subject of intense excitement. It was brightening rapidly, on track to become a brilliant naked-eye object. But then, well before it even reached its perihelion, astronomers watched in real time as it simply fell apart. Hubble images confirmed it. The comet had disintegrated into a small family of fragments, which then faded into obscurity. It wasn't even the sun's peak fury that killed it. It was the approach. The mounting thermal stress alone was enough to shatter its nucleus. It was a fragile thing, unequal to the journey. And then there is the most spectacular case study of all. Comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 inches 1994. This object demonstrates the raw, destructive power of tidal forces. It wasn't even the sun that destroyed it. It was Jupiter. On a previous pass, the comet had strayed too close to the gas giant. Jupiter's gravity, a furnace in its own right, captured it and put it on the rack. The tidal forces stretched the comet until it snapped. It was ripped apart into a string of pearls, a beautiful, deadly necklace of more than 20 fragments, each one a kilometer or more in size, all orbiting Jupiter. In July of 1994, the world watched, mesmerized, as those fragments, one by one, completed their final orbit and plunged into Jupiter's atmosphere. The impacts were staggering. They detonated with the force of thousands of nuclear bombs, leaving Earth-sized bruises, dark scars in the cloud tops that lingered for months. Shoemaker-Levy 9 proved, without any doubt, what comets truly are. They are not solid, resilient bodies. They are not iron cannonballs. They are dirty snowballs, or more accurately, fragile rubble piles, so loosely bound that even a planet, let alone a star, can tear them to pieces with gravity alone. This is the history. This is the precedent. The comet graveyard is vast, and it is populated by objects far more robust than 3I. Atlas is likely to be. The default scientific assumption, the null hypothesis, must always be disintegration. The physics is overwhelming. The historical evidence is unambiguous. Comets are fragile. They die. And this brings us, finally, to 3I, Atlas itself. Every piece of evidence we have suggests that it is not just vulnerable. It is uniquely, perhaps terminally, vulnerable. First, there is its origin. This is not a solar system object. It is a visitor from the true void, the interstellar dark. It has spent, in all likelihood, hundreds of millions, if not billions of years, in a state of cryogenic deep freeze, a cold far more profound than that of our own Oort cloud. It has never been tempered. It has never been tested. Our sun is the first star it has ever truly met. This is its first and last trial by fire. Its pristine, volatile ices have never been processed by this level of heat. It is an infant being thrown into a blast furnace. Second, there is its own behavior. The bizarre events of the past few months, the very things that make it so mysterious, are also the most powerful arguments for its impending doom. The Loeb and Keto compositional model, which we will explore in detail, provides a chillingly plausible narrative. That bright, sun-facing jet, observed by Hubble in July, that wasn't a show of strength. That was its outer armor, a fragile shell of hypervolatile ices like frozen carbon dioxide and nitrogen burning off. That was the most volatile, easily sublimated material being stripped away, far from the sun, where the heat was still weak. That jet was the object's outer layer peeling off. The jet inversion that followed was not a maneuver. It was the catastrophic result of that peeling. With its CO2 armor gone, its deeper core was exposed, and what lies beneath, the models, and all our understanding of comets, suggest a core dominated by water ice. This is the true vulnerability. The transition from a CO2-dominated sublimation to a water ice-dominated sublimation is a moment of profound structural shock. Water ice activates at a different temperature, a different rate. It activates explosively, and 3I Atlas is only now entering that activation zone. The object we are seeing today is already compromised. It is a peeled comet, its structurally integral outer shell already gone. What is left is the core, and that core is now being subjected to the full, focused power of the sun's furnace for the very first time. Every thermal wave will penetrate this new, raw surface. Every new crack will become a conduit for violent, explosive outgassing. If the rubble pile model is correct, this new, violent sublimation will act like dynamite, pushing the loosely bound boulders apart from the inside. The tidal forces from the sun will pull them apart from the outside. 3I Atlas is being attacked from within and without simultaneously. Its own bizarre behavior suggests that it is already in the process of breaking apart. The jet inversion was not a sign of life. It was the first death rattle. This is the grim reality that faces the scientific community. The physics is undeniable. The historical precedent is clear. The object's own actions point to fragility. The default expectation is not a miracle. It is a funeral. The stage is set, the forces are aligned, and the furnace is lit. The logical, scientific, and safe bet is that on October 29th, 3I Atlas will be torn apart, its interstellar journey ending in a brief, silent flash of vaporized ice and dust. Chapter 2. Scenario 1. Disintegration. The natural comet hypothesis. In the face of overwhelming mystery, the scientific method provides an anchor. It demands that we first exhaust all known natural explanations before we dare to whisper the word alien. The bizarre, seemingly impossible behavior of 3I Atlas has a rational, elegant, and powerful explanation. It requires no new physics, no exotic technologies, and no intelligent intervention. It requires only a deep understanding of the complex, violent, and beautiful chemistry of ice and dust under the influence of a star. This is the natural comet hypothesis. It is the explanation favored by the vast majority of the astronomical community, and it is the scenario that leads, almost inevitably, to the object's complete and total destruction on October 29th. This is the case for disintegration. The foundation for this case was laid not in the pages of science fiction, but in peer-reviewed academic literature, most compellingly by astronomers Abraham Loeb and Andrew Cato. Yes, the same Abraham Loeb, whose name is associated with more speculative ideas. A true scientist explores all possibilities, and this natural model is a masterpiece of celestial forensics. Their argument is that the jet reversal was not a maneuver, it was a phase transition. We were not witnessing a pilot changing course. We were witnessing a chemical reaction reaching its climax. The engine was not a fusion drive, it was the sun, and the fuel was the comet's own layered, pristine ice. To understand this, we must travel back in time, back to July 2025, when Hubble first saw that bizarre, sun-facing anti-tail. 3I, Atlas, was far from the sun, out beyond 3 or 4 astronomical units. In that cold, distant realm, the sun's heat is feeble. It is too weak to sublimate water ice, the primary ingredient of most comets. But it is not too weak to activate more volatile, supervolatile ices. These are ices of carbon dioxide, CO2, carbon monoxide, CO, and nitrogen, which flash from solid to gas at far lower temperatures. The Loeb and Keto model posits that 3I, Atlas, a pristine artifact of another star's protoplanetary disk, was layered like a geological cross-section. Its outermost shell, the crust exposed to interstellar space, was not water ice, but a layer highly enriched in these supervolatiles, primarily carbon dioxide. This makes perfect sense. Over its long journey, this would be the material most likely to be retained near the frigid surface. When 3I, Atlas entered this 3 to 4 AU ignition zone, this outer CO2 crust began to sublimate vigorously. This process, this CO2-driven activity, is what Hubble saw. The gas expanded rapidly, entraining dust particles with it. But this was not just any dust. The model argues this was a specific population of small, bright, ice-coated grains. These tiny grains have a very special optical property. They are incredibly efficient at forward-scattering sunlight. This means they scatter light back towards the source, the sunday. From our specific viewing geometry here on Earth, this compact cloud of forward-scattering, CO2-driven ice grains appeared as a bright, focused glow that seemed to point towards the sunday. It was not a jet in the sense of a rocket engine. It was an optical illusion, a glory effect created by specific particle physics and a chance alignment of Earth, Sun, and Comet. It was, in short, a ghost in the machine. Then, as the comet continued its relentless plunge inward, the furnace from Chapter 1 grew hotter. The inverse square law took effect. The sun's energy intensified, and the temperature on 3I, Atlas's surface, climbed past the activation point for CO2. That entire, miles-thick outer crust of carbon dioxide ice was consumed. It was sublimated away, burned off into space, fueling the anti-tail that so mesmerized us. And then, it was gone. The fuel for the ghost jet was exhausted. This is the moment of transition. Sometime in August and September, as the object crossed inside the 3AU line, the solar heating finally reached the next layer down, the true nucleus. This core, the Loeb and Keto model argues, is a different beast entirely. It is the classical dirty snowball, a matrix of water, ice, 2O, and heavier, darker, refractory dust particles, the rocky, carbonaceous grit of another solar system. Water ice requires a much higher temperature to sublimate, a temperature it was only now reaching. As this new water ice engine ignited, it began to release a completely different kind of material. The gas was different, and more importantly, the dust was different. It was no longer the small, bright, icy grains that created the forward-scattering illusion. This was larger, heavier, darker dust, and these particles behave exactly as comet physics predicts. They are pushed, inexorably, away from the Sun by the physical force of solar radiation pressure. This is the jet inversion. It was not a 180-degree flip, it was a fade and replace. The CO2-driven forward-scattering anti-tail ghost faded to black as its fuel source was spent. Simultaneously, the H2O-driven radiation pressure true tail grew into view as its engine was ignited. The Nordic optical telescope didn't capture a maneuver, it captured a changing of the guard on a chemical level. This model is powerful because its timing is perfect. The anti-tail dominated at the precise distance, 3 to 4 AU, where CO2 sublimation is known to be the primary driver of activity. The inversion occurred exactly as the comet entered the distance inside 3 AU, where water ice is known to take over. This isn't speculation, it's a direct match to known astrophysical chemistry. We have even seen this behavior before, albeit in less dramatic fashion, in comets within our own solar system. Comet Hale-Bopp, that magnificent visitor in 1997, displayed multiple distinct jets with different compositions that turned on and off at different distances from the Sunday. Comets are known to be heterogeneous, layered, and capable of surprising seasonal variations. The Loeb and Keto model argues that 3I Atlas is not an alien. It is simply the most spectacular validation of this layered model we have ever witnessed. But this elegant, rational explanation has a dark and violent implication. And this is where the case for disintegration becomes an almost certainty. The Loeb and Keto model is the why, but the physical consequence of that model is imminent, catastrophic failure. This is the part of the theory that should keep us awake at night. That transition from CO2 to H2O was not a clean, gentle, or stable event. The argument presented in Part 2.2 is this: the jet reversal was not just a transition, it was the first crack. We were witnessing the object's armor failing. Think of that outer CO2 layer, not as a layer of snow, but as a structural crust, forged over billions of years in interstellar space, processed and hardened by the constant bombardment of cosmic rays. This was the object's load-bearing shell. It was the only thing holding the loose, rubbly interior together. The sublimation that Hubble saw in July wasn't just activity, it was a breach. It was the structural failure of this armor. The jet inversion was not a clean fade and replace. It was the moment this outer crust cracked, fissured, and carved away. It was the sound of the fortress walls collapsing. Imagine an iceberg in our own ocean. When a massive sheet of ice carves from its face, it is a chaotic, violent event. The iceberg groans, it shifts, it can even tumble as its center of mass changes. Now, scale that up to a body miles across, in a vacuum, with its internal ices flash vaporizing. The jet inversion was the visible sign of this catastrophic failure. The jets we saw weren't controlled engines. They were wounds. They were high-pressure gases from the interior, the newly exposed, volatile, rich water ice erupting violently and asymmetrically through the collapsing CO2 crust. The anti-tail sputtered and died because its structural source was breaking apart. The new tail appeared because the breach was now complete, exposing the comet's guts to the Sunday. This interpretation is critical, as it completely reframes our countdown to Perihelion. 3I Atlas is not approaching the furnace of Chapter 1 as a pristine, solid object. It is approaching as a mortally wounded object. It is already breaking up. Its armor is gone. Its core is exposed, raw and compromised. The thermal shocks and tidal forces waiting for it on October 29th are not attacking a fortress. They are attacking an open, gaping wound. The disintegration of 3I, Atlas, is not a possibility for that day. It is a process that we have been watching unfold since August. The jet reversal wasn't the start of a maneuver, it was the start of the end. It was the first domino in a chain reaction of self-destruction, and the final, violent collapse is now just days away. But this narrative, however elegant, has a gaping hole, a profound paradox that, until now, has been the single greatest piece of evidence for the alternative hypothesis. This is the mystery that has kept sober scientists from dismissing the engineered probe idea out of hand. It is the puzzle of the 33 billion tons. Let us be very clear about this contradiction, for in its resolution lies the final, devastating proof of the natural model. The objection is this. In part 2.2, we argued that 3I, Atlas, is a fragile, wounded object, already breaking apart. Yet, the observational data from its inbound journey presents a picture of an object with an almost supernatural stability. The core mystery, as detailed in the original analysis, is the relationship between its mass loss and its motion. Between July and October 2025, 3I Atlas shed an estimated 2 million metric tons of material. This is not a trivial amount. It is the mass of 3 Empire State Buildings, vaporized and blasted into space. This act of outgassing is not passive. Newton's third law is absolute. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. This 2 million ton ejection must have produced a recoil. It must have acted as a rocket engine. It must have measurably altered the comet's trajectory, producing a non-gravitational acceleration. And yet, the data, analyzed by the world's top astrometrists, shows nothing, or, more accurately, nothing significant. The object's path through the solar system has matched the predictions of pure gravity within the margins of measurement error. It has not been pushed off course. This is the contradiction. How can an object fire a rocket engine powerful enough to shed 2 million tons of mass and not be budged? How can a fragile, wounded comet be so utterly, impossibly stable? This observation seems to kill the natural model. It is the sound of a cannonball, not a snowball. And this is precisely where the engineered probe hypothesis draws its strength. Its proponents argue the answer is obvious. The jets were not random. They were balanced. They were controlled, perhaps firing in multiple opposing directions to cancel out any net thrust, all while maintaining a deliberate trajectory. It implies a level of fine-tuning that screams technology, but the natural model has an answer. And its answer is not control. Its answer is inertia. Sheer, brute, overwhelming inertia. The reason 3I, Atlas, was not pushed off course by its 2 million ton outgassing is simple, and it is humbling. 2 million tons to 3I, Atlas, is nothing. It is a speck of dust. It is a rounding error. It is a single snowflake landing on a mountain. The rocket force was real, but the object it was trying to push was so colossally massive that the resulting acceleration was too small to detect. To understand this, we must run the numbers. The fundamental rocket equation is simple. Force divided by mass equals acceleration. We can estimate the force from the 2 million ton mass loss rate. We have measured the acceleration, which is near zero. The only variable left in that equation is the object's total mass. And when you solve for that mass, when you calculate the minimum mass required for a 2 million ton rocket thrust to produce no detectable acceleration, the number you get is staggering. The lower limit is 33 billion metric tons. 33 billion tons. This is the minimum mass required to explain the orbital stability. This is the 3 billion-ton gorilla in the room. What does an object with that mass look like? If we assume a density typical for comets, that fluffy 600 kilograms per cubic meter, porous and less dense than water, the calculation suggests a body several kilometers across. This is not a small, city block-sized visitor. This is a substantial body, a cosmic mountain. It is on the same scale as some of the larger, more famous comets we have studied. Comet Halley, for instance, masses about 220 billion tons. Comet Hale-Bopp, that giant from the 90 seconds, was estimated at 60 billion tons. 3I Atlas, at 33 billion tons, is on the lower end of that range, but it absolutely qualifies as a major cometary nucleus. And this single insight is the key that unlocks everything. It perfectly resolves the paradox and seals the comet's fate. It allows two seemingly contradictory truths to exist at the same time. 3I Atlas is simultaneously colossally massive and structurally fragile. It is not a cannonball, it is a paper giant. It is a mountain-sized pile of fluff. It is a 3 billion-ton rubble pile, a cosmic iceberg made of loosely aggregated boulders and dust, held together not by tensile strength, but by its own enormous yet feeble internal gravity. Its inertia is massive, which is why the 2-million-ton jets couldn't push it. But its tensile strength is almost zero, which is why the sun's tidal forces can, and will, tear it apart. The lack of acceleration was never a sign of control. It was simply a sign of its immense scale. It confirms that we are dealing with a massive, kilometer-scale nucleus. And now, this massive, fluffy, and already wounded object, its outer CO2 armor gone, its water ice core exposed, is flying directly into the sun's furnace. Its fate is no longer a question, it is an inevitability. This brings us to the final act of the natural scenario, the shatter signature. What will this inevitable death look like? What will the telescope see on or around October 29th? It will not be a gentle fizzle. It will not be a quiet fade. The death of a 3 billion-ton rubble pile. When the complex forces of the furnace finally overcome its weak internal gravity, will be one of the most spectacular acts of celestial violence we have ever had the privilege to witness. It will be an event of explosive, runaway decompression. The moment of failure will come when the combination of tidal forces from the sun, pulling it apart from the outside, and the violent, asymmetrical gas jets pushing it apart from the inside, finally overcomes the object's self-gravity. A deep fissure will crack, a boulder will be dislodged, and this will trigger the cascade. This is the runaway feedback loop. The initial fracture will instantly expose square kilometers of fresh, pristine, buried water ice to the full direct blaze of the Sunday. This ice, which has never seen heat, will flash vaporize instantaneously. The resulting high-pressure jet will be orders of magnitude more powerful than anything we have seen from the object so far. It will act as a demolition charge, blasting that section of the comet apart. This new, violent explosion will push other fragments away, exposing their fresh, icy cores, which will also detonate in a chain reaction of sublimation. The first signal we will see on Earth, the first alert that will go out to the entire astronomical community, will be a sudden, dramatic brightening. The object's light curve, which has been ticking along a predictable path, will suddenly spike. It will brighten by a factor of 10, 100, perhaps even 1,000, in a matter of hours. This is the flash, the combined light, of all that newly exposed, highly reflective ice, and the sunlight scattering off the massive new cloud of dust. This is the death knell. This is the moment the core has failed. The second signal will be visual, and it will be what Hubble, Rubin, and the other great observatories will capture. The single, star-like point of light that defines the comet's nucleus will bloom. It will rapidly elongate. We will see, almost in real time, the string of pearls effect, just as we saw with Shoemaker-Levy 9. The object will be stretched by tidal forces and pushed apart by its own internal jets. That single nucleus will resolve into multiple nuclei. One comet will become a dozen, a swarm of mini-comets, each now on its own slightly different, chaotic trajectory. Each of these new fragments, themselves now fully exposed to the sun, will erupt, sprouting their own bright, new tails. The sky, where there was once a single, focused object, will be filled with a beautiful, chaotic, expanding cloud of debris, a mess of crisscrossing tails and bright, fuzzy clumps. But this spectacular show, this final, glorious fireworks display, will be brief. This is the third and most tragic signal, the fade. These new fragments are small. They have an enormous surface area to volume ratio. They will sublimate furiously, but they will burn out quickly. Like celestial embers, they will exhaust their small reservoirs of ice in a matter of days or weeks. The light curve, which spiked so dramatically, will plummet just as fast. The beautiful, complex cloud of mini-comets will grow larger, more diffuse, and fainter. The fragments will continue to disintegrate into smaller and smaller pieces until all that is left is a faint, cigar-shaped smear of dust following the original path of its parent. This is the shatter signature. This is the definitive, unambiguous death of a comet. When this happens, 3I, Atlas, will cease to exist. It will be gone. The point of light will vanish. The mystery will be over. The debate will be settled. The scientific community will have its answer, and it will be the one physics always predicted. It was a comet, a spectacular, massive interstellar comet, but a comet nonetheless. Its story will end not as a messenger, but as a sacrifice. Its 3 billion-ton body rendered into a cloud of dust by the unforgiving furnace of our Sunday. The natural model will be vindicated, and the universe will, once again, fall silent. Chapter 3, Scenario 2, Survival. The engineered probe, solid object hypothesis. The natural explanation, as laid out in Chapter 2, is powerful. It is elegant, it is rooted in known chemistry, and it is profoundly comforting. It confirms that the universe, while strange, is still a place we understand. It allows us to file 3I Atlas away as a fascinating but solved anomaly. It is the explanation that lets us sleep at night. But there is a problem. It is too neat. It requires a chain of coincidences so precise, a set of geometric and chemical alignments so perfect that it stretches the very definition of natural. It asks us to believe that a random, tumbling, kilometers-wide rubble pile from another star just happened to have a layered composition that happened to transition at the exact right moment, which in turn happened to create a temporary, illusory, forward-scattering anti-tail from our exact viewing angle, which then happened to fade perfectly as a new water-ice tail grew in the exact opposite direction. Science must ask a hard question. At what point does a perfect coincidence become statistically less likely than the uncomfortable alternative? This is where we must, as rigorous observers, turn our attention to Scenario 2. This is the hypothesis that forces us to confront the silence. It is the explanation that, for many in the scientific establishment, is taboo. But science is not about comfort, it is about evidence. and the evidence on the table demands that we consider the hypothesis championed by astronomers like Avi Loeb and Adam Hibbard. This hypothesis is not a wild guess. It is not science fiction. It is a cold, logical, and testable proposition based on the object's own observed behavior. The hypothesis is this: 3I Atlas is not a natural object. It is a purpose-built, solid-body object. It is, in short, a probe. And its behavior is not activity. It is not fragmentation. It is not a chemical transition. It is a maneuver. This hypothesis rests on the most fundamental data we have: the object's directionality and timing. The natural model explains these away as a complex series of chemical coincidences and optical illusions. The engineered model argues for a devastatingly simple alternative. The object was pointing that way on purpose. The jet inversion was not a messy, chaotic breakdown. It was a clean, logical, procedural sequence of burns. It was not a phase transition. It was a mission phase shift. Let us, for a moment, adopt the mindset of an aerospace engineer. If you were tasked with sending a probe to our solar system to perform a high-speed reconnaissance and then exit on a new trajectory, how would you do it? You would not rely on random, passive gravity assists. You would perform a powered gravity assist. And a powered gravity assist, to be executed with maximum efficiency, is not one single burn. It is a precise, three-stage sequence. First, you execute a braking burn on approach. Second, you coast and reorient. Third, you execute a primary acceleration burn as you whip around the gravity well. This is not speculation. This is orbital mechanics 101. It is the Hohmann transfer on an interstellar scale. And this three-stage textbook maneuver is, exactly, step for step, what 3I Atlas was observed to do. Let's re-examine the evidence through this lens. Part 3. 1. The Loeb and Hibbard engineered probe hypothesis. First, the braking maneuver. In July 2025, Hubble sees a bright, coherent jet firing towards the Sunday. The natural model goes to extraordinary lengths to explain this as a forward-scattering ghost. The engineered model says the simplest explanation is that it is exactly what it looks like. It is a retro burn. It is a collimated, directed stream of thrust, an engine firing against the object's direction of travel. This is a braking burn. But why would a probe brake as it is falling towards the Sun? The answer is high-level orbital mechanics. To shape its trajectory, by slowing down, it allows the Sun's gravity to capture it more effectively. It sheds orbital velocity to fall onto a tighter, faster, more aggressive curve. This is a course correction. It's how you fine-tune your perihelion, ensuring your angle of approach, your altitude, and your timing are perfect for the next stage of the maneuver. The natural model requires us to believe in a perfect, temporary alignment of CO2-driven ice grains and Earth's viewing angle. The engineered model simply requires us to believe in intent. Second, the coast phase. In August, as the object plunged closer, the anti-tail sputtered and died. The natural model claims this was the chaotic, violent disintegration of the outer CO2 crust. But if that were true, we should have seen chaos. A miles-wide rubble pile, its armor breached, should have begun to tumble. We should have seen multiple, new, unstable jets erupting from all over its surface as the new water ice layer was exposed. But that is not what we saw. We saw a period of relative quiet. The object did not fly apart. It did not bloom into a cloud of fragments. It simply went dark. In the engineered model, this is not chaos. This is procedure. The braking burn was complete. The engine was shut down. The object was now in its coast phase, using this time to perform the second stage of the maneuver, reorientation. It was a slow, controlled turn, perhaps using reaction wheels or attitude thrusters to swing its main engine around 180 degrees to point it in the correct direction for the next burn. The silence was not a sign of death. It was a sign of precision. Third, the main engine burn. In September, the Nordic Optical Telescope chronicled the jet inversion. A new tail grew 180 degrees opposite the first, a classical tail pointing directly away from the Sunday. The natural model claims this was the messy water ice core finally igniting. But again, where was the chaos? We saw a new, dominant, coherent tail form. The engineered model's explanation is bone-chillingly simple. This was the primary acceleration burn. This was the third stage of the maneuver. Having braked to shape its path and coasted to reorient, the probe ignited its main engine precisely as it entered the phase of maximum gravitational acceleration. This is a prograde burn. It is adding its own thrust to the immense velocity it is already gaining from the solar slingshot. This is how you get maximum delta V. This is how you change your orbital plane. This is how you turn a simple flyby into a trajectory-altering event. The sequence is what matters. Brake, coast, accelerate. This is not a coincidence. This is a procedure. This brings us to part 3.2, the jet reversal as a controlled burn. Let us dispense with the ghost explanation for the July anti-tail. The problem with the forward scattering model is that it is too convenient. It's a just-so story. It requires a specific particle size, a specific particle composition, a specific viewing angle, and it still doesn't fully explain the high degree of collimation, the coherent, jet-like structure seen in the Hubble image. Natural cometary jets, even CO2-driven ones, are diffuse, wide-angle sprays. They are dirty geysers. What Hubble saw looked less like a geyser and more like the focused exhaust of a rocket engine. The simplest explanation is that it was an engine. It was a retro burn, pure and simple. But what was the purpose of this highly specific two-stage burn? The purpose was to execute the single most efficient maneuver in orbital mechanics, the powered gravity assist. This is the Holy Grail. NASA's Voyager, Galileo, and Cassini probes used passive gravity assists to tour the solar system, but they were slaves to the fixed positions of the planets. An active or powered assist, where you fire your own engines at the moment of closest approach, is a different category entirely. It multiplies the effect of the gravity assist. You get the free velocity from the gravitational slingshot, plus the velocity from your own engine, plus the Loeb effect, a bonus multiplier in physics where a rocket burn is more efficient when performed at high speed, deep in a gravity well. This is what 3I, Atlas, appears to have done. It didn't just fly by the sun. It used the Sunday. It used our star as a cosmic pivot point, a refueling station, a gravitational cannon. This, then, is the grand, terrifying picture. 3I, Atlas, is a reconnaissance probe. It entered our solar system on a specific trajectory. It executed a braking burn to fall onto a new, tighter trajectory, one perfectly calculated for a powered slingshot. It coasted, reoriented, and then ignited its main engine before Perihelion to maximize the Loeb effect. It is using our sun's furnace as a tool. It is not a victim of the furnace. It is a master of it. And this single hypothesis solves all the paradoxes that plague the natural model. Why didn't it shatter under the thermal stress, as a 3 billion-ton rubble pile should? The answer is simple. It is not a rubble pile. It is a solid object, constructed from manufactured materials, metals, ceramics, composites, designed specifically to withstand the thermal and gravitational stresses of a 356 AU pass. The furnace is not a threat to it. It was the destination. The Perihelion pass is the entire point of the mission. It is not an obstacle. It is the objective. And what about the 3 billion-ton mass? The natural model needs that massive, fluffy mass to explain the lack of orbital change from its 2 million-ton mass loss. But the engineered model has a different and far more disturbing answer. What if the mass isn't 33 billion tons? What if the object is much smaller, perhaps only a few kilometers wide, but made of materials far, far denser than ice? What if it is a solid cannonball? In that case, the 2 million-ton mass loss was not outgassing. It was propellant, a highly efficient fuel mass. The reason its orbit didn't randomly change is because the thrust was controlled. The non-gravitational acceleration was there, but it was a deliberate acceleration, perfectly integrated into its orbital path. We didn't see it as an anomaly because it was the intended path. The alternative is even simpler. The 3 billion-ton mass is correct, but the density is not 600 kilograms per cubic meter. It is the density of iron or titanium or something we have not yet imagined. It is a solid, mountain-sized machine. In this scenario, the object's survival on October 29th is not a question. It is a foregone conclusion. It will not shatter. It will not break. It will not even notice the heat. It will round the sun, its main engine blazing, and emerge on the other side on a new trajectory, one that was impossible just months ago. It will have successfully used our star to change course and accelerate, heading for its next unknown and perhaps unknowable target. This brings us to the great paradox that has plagued the entire 3I Atlas debate, the enigma of the 33 billion tons. The natural comet model, as explored in Chapter 2, is forced to embrace this massive, kilometers-wide fluffy rubble pile. It needs this colossal, low-density mass. It is the only way it can reconcile the two contradictory observations: a 2 million-ton mass loss event that inexplicably produced no detectable non-gravitational acceleration. The natural model's solution is inertia. The comet is simply too big and too massive, a paper giant for its own chaotic, sputtering jets to push it off course. This is a possible solution, but it is one born of desperation. It is an assumption stacked upon an assumption. It requires us to believe in a precise kilometer-scale mass and a precise low-density composition, all for an object we have never seen up close. The engineered probe hypothesis, however, is not burdened by these assumptions. It offers a far cleaner, more direct, and profoundly more disturbing solution to the mass acceleration paradox. In fact, it offers two. The first solution is that the 3 billion-ton mass is a complete fiction. It is a ghost number, a phantom born from a flawed assumption. The calculation that gave us this number was based on the premise that the jets were natural and random sublimation. But what if they were not? The engineered model argues that the very reason we detected no random, non-gravitational acceleration is that the thrust was not random. It was perfectly controlled. A natural comet is a messy, asymmetrical, tumbling, dirty snowball. It is a collection of chaotic, unevenly heated geysers, firing at different angles. Such an object must produce random, detectable, non-gravitational forces. It should be pushed around by 2 million-ton jets. The absence of this random acceleration is not a sign of high inertia. It is a sign of control. It is the single most unnatural piece of evidence we have. It is the observational signature of a technology that possesses an advanced attitude control system with balanced thrusters that can execute a burn without tumbling the craft. The anomaly is not the jet. The anomaly is the perfection of its stability in spite of the jet. If this is true, the object doesn't need to be 33 billion tons. It could be much, much smaller and far, far denser. It could be a solid body a few kilometers across, made of metal, ceramics, or advanced composites. The 2 million ton mass loss was not sublimation. It was propellant. It was a measured, calculated fuel expenditure. The object's orbital path didn't change randomly because it was being steered deliberately. The non-gravitational acceleration was there, but it wasn't a random anomaly we had to account for. It was the intended change in its orbital vector. We didn't see it as a deviation because we were watching the result of the deviation. We were watching a craft fly a perfect, powered trajectory. The second solution is in its own way even more chilling. Let us, for a moment, accept that the 3 billion ton mass calculation is correct. But we must reject the assumption that it is a fluffy, low-density object at 600 kilograms per meter. 3. What if this 3 billion ton object has the density of solid rock, 3,000 kilograms per meter? 3. Or more to the point, iron, 7,800 kilograms per meter. 3. This would imply a smaller but unfathomably solid object, a mountain of solid metal. In this scenario, the 2 million ton propellant burn would also be insufficient to move it, not because it's a fluffy giant, but because it's a solid leviathan. Both engineered scenarios, the smaller, controlled thrust machine and the massive solid metal mountain, arrive at the exact same, inescapable conclusion. 3. Atlas is not a fragile, fluffy, rubble pile on the verge of collapse. It is a coherent, solid, and robust body. It is a survivor. This is the key. If it is a solid body object, whether by design or by some exotic natural process we have yet to discover, then the sun's furnace is not its executioner. It is merely a navigational hazard it was built to withstand. The Perihelion pass is not a test of its fragility. It is a demonstration of its integrity. This leads us to the most critical, testable part of this entire hypothesis. Part 3.4. The survival signature. If scenario 2 is correct, what, precisely, are we looking for on October 29th? What is the falsifiable prediction that separates this from mere speculation? The first and most dramatic signal will be, paradoxically, an absence of drama. It will be a null event. We will be looking for the definitive anti-signature of what Chapter 2 predicts. On and after October 29th, there will be no shatter signature. There will be no sudden, chaotic, catastrophic brightening. The object's light curve, monitored by every ground-based telescope, will remain stable. It will brighten predictably as it approaches, and dim predictably as it recedes, but it will not flare. There will be no bloom. There will be no string of pearls. Hubble, pointed at its core, will not resolve a new, elongated debris field. It will see exactly what it saw before, a single, unresolved, point-like source. It will see an object that has endured the full fury of the solar furnace and treated it as a non-event. This is the first, simple, pass-fail test. If it shatters, scenario 1 is correct. If it survives, scenario 2 remains the primary focus. But survival alone is not proof of artificiality. It would be anomalous, yes, but it could still be an exotic, ultra-dense, natural object. The true probe signature comes in the days and weeks after survival. The real test is not if it survives, but how it behaves as a survivor. The entire global astronomical community will be focused on one thing: the anti-solar tail, the main engine that ignited in September. A natural comet's activity is a slave to the Sunday. Its tail is a product of heat. That activity must peak at perihelion, and it must begin a long, slow, predictable fade-out as the comet recedes from the heat source. The tail will get fainter and shorter over weeks and months, following a well-understood formula, but an engineered object's engine is a slave to its mission profile. It is not tied to ambient heat. This gives us two spectacular smoking gun signatures to hunt for. The first is the burn cutoff. Imagine the scene. It is mid-November. The probe has survived. It is still hot, still deep within the inner solar system, and its tail should be blazing, but instead, it vanishes. Not over weeks, but over hours. The tail, the engine exhaust, simply stops. This is not sublimation. This is not a natural process. This is an engine being shut down. This is a craft that has achieved its desired velocity and trajectory from the powered slingshot, and it is now, logically, conserving its propellant. A sudden, unnatural cessation of activity while still in a high-heat environment would be an unambiguous signature of a controlled, non-natural mechanism. The second, and perhaps even more profound, signature is the course correction burn. In this scenario, the probe survives perihelion. It coasts for days or weeks, its main engine perhaps off. Its new trajectory is being calculated, both by us and by it. And then, a new jet appears. Or the existing jet changes direction. It fires a new, collimated stream of propellant at a new, oblique angle. This is a mid-course correction burn. It has used the sun's gravity, added its own thrust, calculated its new path, and is now fine-tuning its vector to its next target. Perhaps it is aiming for a rendezvous with an object in our Kuiper belt, or perhaps it is simply lining up its final exit vector from our solar system. This, too, would be irrefutable, but the most powerful, the most undeniable, the scientific proof will not come from a picture, however dramatic. It will come from the cold, hard numbers. It will come from the long-term, high-precision, astrometric data. In the weeks and months after October 29th, as we track 3I Atlas's position with obsessive millimeter-per-second precision, we will compare its actual path to the predicted path. The natural model, even the 3 billion-ton paper giant model, predicts a very specific outbound orbit influenced only by gravity, solar radiation pressure, and a gentle, fading, symmetrical outgassing. But the probe model, having executed a powered gravity assist, will be on a completely different trajectory. It will be moving faster or in a different direction than any natural model can possibly account for. This deviation, this new, sustained, non-gravitational acceleration on its outbound journey will be the final verdict. It will be the mathematical proof, written in the language of physics, that 3I Atlas is not bound by nature's laws. Because it was not created by nature, the test, therefore, is twofold. First, survival on October 29th. Second, and far more critically, the hunt for new, controlled behavior in the aftermath. The survival is the prerequisite. The behavior of the survivor will be the definitive proof. Chapter IV. The Global Observation Campaign. The verdict on October 29th will not be delivered by a single person, nor will it be seen by a single instrument. The judgment of 3I Atlas, whether it is a fragile, natural comet or an impossible, resilient machine, will be the result of the single largest, most coordinated, and most desperate observational campaign in modern astronomical history. In the face of this anomaly, the normal, slow, siloed procedures of science have been shattered. Rival observatories are coordinating. Competing theorists are sharing data. The most sought-after, oversubscribed, multi-billion-dollar instruments on and off the planet have had their schedules cleared. Directors' discretionary time, the most precious resource in this field, has been granted with an urgency never before seen. We are witnessing the creation of a global, planet-wide sensor web, a network of eyes on the fire, all pointed at one single, enigmatic target, waiting for it to reveal its true nature. And in this global effort, every major observatory has a distinct, critical, and non-negotiable role. They are not just observing, they are a jury, and each holds a different piece of the evidence. First, and most iconic, are the visual eyes. This is the domain of the Hubble Space Telescope. For 3 decades, Hubble has been our veteran sentinel, the high-resolution eye in the sky. Its role in this campaign is not to hunt for faint gas or subtle chemistry. Its role is brutal, simple, and definitive. Morphology. It is the shatter detective. Hubble's unfathomably sharp vision, operating above the blur of Earth's atmosphere, will be focused with pinpoint precision, not on the fuzzy coma, but on the nucleus, the object's central, star-like core. Hubble is the only instrument we have that stands a chance of visually resolving the moment of disintegration. It is the telescope that will deliver the photograph, the image that will define this event for history. On that day, Hubble's controllers will be fighting their own battle. They will be pushing the telescope to its absolute limits, battling its strict solar avoidance angles, trying to point the sensitive craft as close to the sun as is survivably possible to keep its target in view. Its mission is to look for the bloom. If scenario 1, the natural comet model, is correct, that single, sharp point of light that Hubble has been tracking will begin to fail. It will not just get brighter, it will get larger. It will lose its crisp, stellar appearance and bloom into a soft, fuzzy, elongated cloud. This will be the first visual proof that the core's integrity has been breached, and as the tidal forces continue their relentless work, Hubble will hunt for the string of pearls. It will strain to resolve that single, blooming cloud into multiple points of light. A dozen, perhaps 2 dozen, new mini-comets flying in rough formation. This is the Shoemaker-Levy 9 signature. It is the unambiguous, photographic proof of a catastrophic tidal disruption. If 3I Atlas shatters, Hubble will be the eye that sees it happen. Conversely, if scenario 2, the probe hypothesis, is correct, Hubble's role is just as critical. It will be the primary witness to the null event. It will stare into the furnace and see nothing. It will report that the single, hard, unresolved point of light remains a single, hard, unresolved point of light. It will prove that the object has held together. This binary, visual, pass-fail test is Hubble's entire mission. But a picture of what happened is not enough. We need to know why. This is the role of the James Webb Space Telescope. If Hubble is the eye, JWST is the nose. It is the chemist. This revolutionary infrared observatory, shielded from the sun's heat, is a machine built to answer one question. What is this thing made of? JWST's primary mission will not be imaging. It will be spectroscopy. It will capture the faint, invisible to Hubble infrared light from the object's coma and smear it into a rainbow, a barcode of its chemical components. This is the single most important diagnostic we have. As 3I Atlas reaches maximum heating, the materials boiling off its surface will fill the coma, and each molecule water, carbon dioxide, methane, ammonia will scream its presence at a specific infrared frequency. JWST is listening for those screams. Its mission is twofold, perfectly aligned with our two competing scenarios. If Scenario 1 disintegration is correct, JWST will deliver the smoking gun for the Loeb and Keto model. As the object breaks apart, we will finally see the signature of the water ice core that was supposedly hiding beneath the CO2 crust. JWST's spectrographs will be flooded with the unmistakable, powerful emission lines of H2O. We will see a massive spike in water vapor, confirming, once and for all, that this was indeed a water-rich, dirty snowball that cracked under pressure. JWST will, in effect, be performing an autopsy, analyzing the chemical composition of the object's guts as they are spilled into space. But it is JWST's role in Scenario 2 survival that has astronomers holding their breath. What if the probe survives? What if it is an engineered object, its main engine blazing? What does an engine look like to a spectrograph? It would not look like a comet. A comet's chemistry is cold and complex. Water, CO, CO2, methane. An engine's exhaust is hot and often simple, dominated by specific reaction products. JWST would search for these anomalies. It would look for a spectrum that is not a comet. Perhaps it would find an eerie absence of water, even at peak heat. Or, more incredibly, it might detect anomalous spectral lines that have no business being there. Signatures of metallic vapors, ionized gases, or processed chemical compounds that cannot be explained by natural sublimation. In this, JWST is not just a chemist, it is a counterintelligence machine, a device built to distinguish the breath of a natural object from the exhaust of an artificial one. Finally, while the space telescopes perform their high-stakes, high-precision operations, the entire planet Earth will be watching. This is the role of the ground-based network, from the Nordic Optical Telescope that first chronicled the reversal, to the giant eyes at Keck and Gemini, to the brand-new, all-seeing Vera C. Rubin Observatory. These instruments are the heartbeat monitors. They are the campaign's infantry. What they lack in Hubble's resolution or JWST's chemical sensitivity, they make up for in one overwhelming advantage: persistence. They are not limited by solar avoidance angles in the same way. They can, as a global, rotating network, stare at 3I Atlas continuously. Their mission is photometry, the precise, second-by-second measurement of its total brightness. They are building its light curve, its EKG. These ground-based stations are the alarm system. They will be the first to know. If Scenario 1 disintegration occurs, they will see the shatter signature first. Their light curves will show the sudden, violent, logarithmic spike in brightness as the core fragments and exposes its reflective icy interior. This spike will be the code red, the alert flashed to Hubble and JWST. The event is happening now. Conversely, they are the primary witnesses for Scenario 2 survival. They will watch for the null event, a light curve that is perfectly smooth, perfectly predictable, and perfectly boring. A curve that rises and falls with simple geometry, utterly lacking the chaotic flares of a dying comet. But they will also be looking for the probe signature, the unnatural burn cutoff. They will be watching to see if that bright, anti-solar tail stops abruptly, causing a sudden, non-natural dip in brightness, even as the object is still hot. This global coordinated web of eyes, each with its own specific task, Hubble for the picture, JWST for the chemistry, and the ground network for the pulse, ensures that whatever happens in the solar furnace, it will not happen in darkness. We will be watching, while the great observatories of Earth and its immediate orbit execute their high-stakes, real-time campaign. Their observations are haunted by a ghost. This ghost is not a theoretical model. It is a piece of hard, empirical data that either does not exist or, perhaps more maddeningly, exists but has not yet reached us. It is the missing clue of the entire investigation. It is the data that could have rendered much of this suspense, this binary countdown to perihelion, completely unnecessary. This is the story of the Mars flyby on October 3rd, 2025, and the deafening silence that has followed. This was our one, singular, and fleeting chance to solve the single greatest ambiguity of the 3I Atlas mystery, its 3D geometry. We are staring at a flat, 2D projection on the sky, and we are forced to guess at the 3D reality. The Mars flyby was our only opportunity to open a second eye, to see the object in stereoscopic 3D, and to know, definitively, the true nature of its jets. And now, just days before the final test, we are flying blind, because we still do not have this critical, missing piece of the puzzle. Here is the fundamental problem that has plagued our investigation from the start. All of our instruments, Hubble, JWST, the Nordic Optical Telescope, every observatory on Earth, are all clustered in the same tiny corner of the solar system. We are all, essentially, looking from the same line of sight. This means we cannot distinguish true physical structure from simple projection effects. It is the astronomical equivalent of trying to judge the shape of a complex sculpture with only one eye open. You see the outline, but you cannot perceive the depth. The entire debate between Scenario 1 and Scenario 2 hinges on this ambiguity. The natural comet model, Scenario 1, needs the July anti-tail to be a projection effect, a flat, fan-shaped sheet of dust that only looked like a sun-facing jet because we were viewing it edge-on. The engineered probe model, Scenario 2, needs that same jet to be a true, physical, collimated retroburn that was actually pointing at the sunday from Earth. Both scenarios look identical. We cannot tell the difference, but on October 3rd, 3I Atlas passed by the planet Mars. This was not a close encounter in the dramatic sense, but geometrically, it was the single most important event of the object's inbound journey. For a brief period, the object was in a position where it could be observed simultaneously from two vastly different locations: Earth and the fleet of advanced robotic spacecraft currently orbiting the red planet. This was our chance to open that second eye. An image from a Mars orbiter, taken at the same time as an image from Hubble, would not be a guess. It would be triangulation. It would be a definitive mathematical solution to the 3D projection problem. The hope, the desperate, frantic hope of the scientific community was pinned on one instrument in particular, the High-Resolution Imaging Science Experiment, or HiRISE, aboard NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, MRO. HiRISE is arguably the most powerful telescopic camera ever sent beyond Earth's orbit. It is designed to capture breathtaking, sub-meter resolution images of the Martian surface, but it is, fundamentally, a magnificent telescope. If this powerful eye could be turned away from Mars and towards 3I Atlas as it passed, it would have provided the missing clue. Had HiRISE captured that image, the debate would be over. If the HiRISE image, from its different angle, showed a broad, diffuse, fan-shaped cloud, one that clearly did not resemble a jet at all, It would have been the smoking gun for Scenario 1. It would have proven, beyond all doubt, that the anti-tail was an illusion, a simple projection of a standard cometary dust trail, just as the Loeb and Keto model predicts. It would have confirmed 3I Atlas as a natural, if unusual, comet, and we would now be calmly awaiting its likely disintegration. Conversely, if the high-rise image, from its unique Martian perspective, had shown the exact same thing, Hubble saw a tight, coherent, collimated jet, it would have been the death knell for the natural model. It would have proven, mathematically, that the jet was a true 3D physical structure, not a 2D illusion. It would have all but confirmed the retro burn of Scenario 2. We would know, right now, that we are watching an engineered object, but this observation was never a simple matter of pointing and shooting. It was, in fact, an orbital and engineering nightmare. HiRISE is not an astronomical telescope. It is a push-broom imager, designed to build up images by staring down at a planet moving beneath it. MRO itself is a massive, 3-axis stabilized spacecraft, not a nimble astronomical pointer. To capture 3I Atlas, the entire multi-ton spacecraft would have had to execute a complex, high-speed roll, slewing across the sky to track a faint, fast-moving target that it was never, ever designed to look at. Furthermore, these commands cannot be executed in real time. They must be planned, written, tested, and uploaded weeks in advance. Did the scientific community realize the object's full significance in time to lobby NASA and JPL for this precious, mission-altering observing time? Did the engineers at Lockheed Martin, who fly the spacecraft, deem the maneuver safe? And this is the source of the terrible, maddening silence. The flyby was on October 3rd. It is now October 24th. We have nothing. No press release from NASA, no celebratory image from JPL, no new data in the astronomical telegrams. This silence can mean one of several things, each more frustrating than the last. It could mean the observation was attempted, but the technical challenges were too great. The pointing may have been off, or the image smeared into uselessness by the high relative velocity. It could mean the observation was successful, and the data is right now sitting on a hard drive aboard MRO, waiting in the long data downlink queue, patiently trickling back to Earth, bit by bit, over the deep space network. A clue that exists, but one that will arrive too late. Or it could mean the worst, most tragic outcome, that due to the complexities of bureaucracy, scheduling, and risk assessment, the observation was never even attempted, that humanity had its eye to the keyhole, a second, more powerful eye just millions of miles away, and we chose not to look. This is the missing clue. Because this data is not on our screens, we are now forced into this high-stakes, binary gamble. We are forced to use the perihelion itself as the experiment. We must wait for the furnace to give us the answer that the Mars flyby could have provided weeks ago. The jury in Part 4. 1 Hubble, JWST. The ground network is now operating without its single most important piece of forensic evidence. They are being asked to render a verdict, but they have been denied the one clue that could have solved the case. We are flying blind, and it is a blindness that may have been entirely, tragically, avoidable. The high-stakes drama of October 29th, with its binary life-or-death outcome, is the focus of all our anxiety. But it is a terrible mistake to think this is the end of the story. The perihelion is not a conclusion. It is a catalyst. It is the moment the forensic investigation truly begins. The global campaign, as described Hubble, JWST, the ground-based network, is a rapid response team. a SWAT team designed for the moment of crisis. Their job is to witness the event itself, but what comes after? The long, slow, difficult work of sifting through the evidence or tracking the survivor falls to a new, revolutionary class of observer. These are the new players, two instruments that have come online at the precise historical moment they are most needed. They are not just more telescopes, they are endurance machines, data-gathering engines of a scale we have never before possessed. They are the Vera C, Rubin Observatory, and the foremost spectrograph, and their watch begins the moment the perihelion is over. First is the Vera C Rubin Observatory, an 8.4-meter giant in Chile. Rubin is not a telescope in the traditional sense. It is not built to stare, to patiently analyze a single target for hours. It is an all-seeing eye, a change detection machine. Its mission, the legacy survey of space and time, is to scan the entire visible southern sky every few nights, creating the deepest, most comprehensive time-lapse movie of the universe ever attempted. Its role is not to perform the autopsy. Its role is to find the body and every piece of evidence left at the scene. Let us apply this power to Scenario 1, Disintegration. On October 29th, 3I Atlas shatters. Hubble and JWST capture the initial flash and the string of pearls, but within weeks, this cloud of debris will expand, and its individual fragments will grow catastrophically faint. They will fade beyond the reach of Hubble's narrow view and JWST's precious, limited observing time. They will, quite simply, be lost. But they will not be lost to Rubin. Rubin's repetitive, ultra-deep scan of the entire sky is the perfect tool for this exact scenario. It is a digital net, and nothing will escape it. Night after night, Rubin's automated data pipeline will find these faint, moving fragments, flagging them against the static background of stars. It will not just find one or two, it will find hundreds of them. It will track each one, calculating a new, independent orbit for every significant piece of the original nucleus. Rubin will, in effect, be the shepherd for this flock of ghostly fragments. It will allow us to do what we have never done, perform a true, long-term autopsy of a shattered comet. By tracking how the debris cloud expands, how the different fragments are pushed by solar radiation, we can reverse engineer the object's original structure. We can determine its density, its internal cohesion, and the explosive force of its breakup. Rubin will not just confirm that it died, it will tell us how it died. Now, apply Rubin to Scenario 2, Survival. The probe makes it past the sun intact. It is now on its outbound journey, racing away from us, back into the darkness. This is the moment the real test begins. Is it following a natural, ballistic trajectory, or is it under power? To prove the probe hypothesis, we need data. We need a long, unbroken chain of high-precision astrometric data points. We need to track its position for years, watching for the tiny, non-gravitational deviations that would be the smoking gun of an engine. Hubble and JWST cannot do this. They cannot be tasked with following one faint object for a decade, but Rubin can. This is what it is built to do. The object will pass through Rubin's field of view dozens, if not hundreds of times, on its way out. Every single pass will be another data point, another nail in the coffin of the natural model, or the definitive proof that it was just a rock. Rubin is the jailer. It is the parole officer that will shadow 3I, Atlas, all the way to the Kuiper Belt and beyond, ensuring that if it makes one single unnatural move, we will see it. But finding the fragments, or tracking the survivor, is only half the problem. This is where the second new player enters. Foremost. The 4-meter multi-object spectroscopic telescope, also in Chile, is the perfect partner to Rubin. If Rubin is the detective that finds the evidence, Foremost is the forensics lab that analyzes it. The bottleneck in astronomy has never been finding things. It has been understanding them. Foremost is a spectroscopic net. Using 2,400 robotic fiber optic arms, it can take 2,400 spectra simultaneously. It is a characterization engine on an industrial scale. In Scenario 1, Rubin finds the cloud of 100 fragments. Foremost can then be pointed at that cloud and in a single observation, place its fibers on dozens of the brightest fragments at the same time. This is a power we have never had. We won't get a spectrum of the debris, we will get a chemical map. We can ask questions that were previously science fiction. Was the comet's core chemically different from its mantle? Is one fragment rich in water ice, while another is rich in organics? Did the object form in layers? Foremost will turn the autopsy from a physical one into a chemical one, completing the work JWST started. In Scenario 2, Rubin tracks the surviving probe. Foremost monitors its engine. It can dedicate dozens of its fibers to the probe and the empty sky around it, night after night, building up an incredibly deep, high signal-to-noise spectrum of its exhaust. It will be the definitive, long-term monitor. It will confirm the chemistry JWST detected. It will be the first to see the burn cut-off signature when the spectral lines of the engine's exhaust suddenly vanish. Together, these two new players are a revelation. Their timing, coming online just as this interstellar drama reaches its climax, is a profound shift in our capability. They are the permanent, persistent surveillance system that ensures no matter what happens on October 29th, 3I, Atlas will not get away. The crisis team may stand down, but the long, patient watch of the new players will have just begun. Chapter V, the verdict, the human implication. As the final countdown to Perihelion begins, it is a profound error to believe that this is merely a scientific event. The data streaming back from the global network of telescopes described in Chapter 4 will not just be analyzed, it will be judged. It will be seized upon by two warring factions in a conflict that has been simmering for decades. A conflict not about physics, but about philosophy, reputation, and the very soul of the scientific method. The events of October 29th are not just a test of a comet's integrity, they are a trial. And on that trial's docket are two of the heaviest questions humanity has ever faced. First, who do we trust to interpret the universe for us? And second, what is our actual place within it? This is the human implication, a verdict that will fall not on the object, but on us. The first, and most personal, of these trials is the intellectual civil war that 3I, Atlas, has ignited. This is the case of the Loeb effect versus the establishment. This is not a simple disagreement. It is a battle for the credibility of science itself. On one side, we have the establishment. This is not a single person, but a vast, powerful, and deeply entrenched system. It is the consensus of the world's major astronomical institutions, the sober gatekeepers of peer review, the editorial boards of journals like Nature and Science, and the leadership of agencies like NASA. Their guiding principle is the Sagan standard. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. They are the guardians of scientific sobriety. They view their role as protecting the hard-won integrity of their field from the corrosive, circus-like effects of sensationalism. To them, the taboo against speculating about alien technology is not a failure of imagination. It is a firewall. It is a necessary giggle factor that prevents billions of dollars of public research funding from being hijacked by tabloid fodder, by ufology, by the wishful thinking of a public that does not understand the burden of proof. They have spent careers building a wall between serious astrobiology and little green men, and they will defend that wall at all costs. On the other side of this conflict, we have a single, high-profile, and utterly unshakable challenger, Abraham Avi Loeb. A former chair of Harvard's astronomy department, Loeb is not a fringe outsider. He is a brilliant, prolific, and deeply serious physicist who, in 2017, committed what the establishment considers to be the original sin. When the first interstellar visitor, Oumuamua, tumbled past, he dared to do the unforgivable. He published a scientific paper suggesting its anomalous acceleration was best explained not by exotic, unseen ice, but by an artificial light sail a piece of alien technology. In that moment, he became the intellectual leader of the techno-signature movement. He argues that the establishment's firewall is not a defense, it is a blindfold. It is a systemic, unscientific groupthink, a failure of nerve that is actively preventing us from finding the very evidence we claim to be seeking. This is the Loeb effect, the use of a high-profile platform to force the public and the scientific community to confront the possibility of artificiality, to drag the question out of the realm of giggle factor and into the light of legitimate, funded, scientific inquiry. 3I Atlas is the ultimate battlefield for these two worldviews. It is Oumuamua on an epic, undeniable scale. Oumuamua was a faint, passive, tumbling anomaly. 3I Atlas is a bright, active, maneuvering behemoth. The establishment, through the Loeb and Keto model, Chapter 2, has scrambled to build a powerful, elegant, natural explanation for it. It is a beautiful theory of layered ice and projection effects. It is the safe harbor, the way out. Loeb, through the Hibbard model, Chapter 3, has offered the direct, engineered alternative, and now, Perihelion is the judgment. Let us be clear about the reputational stakes. If, on October 29th, 3I Atlas shatters, if Hubble sees the string of pearls and JWST tastes the water ice guts of a dead comet, it will be an absolute, crushing, and perhaps final victory for the establishment. It will be the ultimate "I told you so." The Loeb and Keto model will be taught in textbooks, and Avi Loeb will, in the eyes of many, be permanently marginalized. He will be the boy who cried alien. The media, which feasted on his speculation, will turn on him with equal ferocity. The establishment will be vindicated, and the firewall will be rebuilt, stronger than ever. The taboo on techno-signature research will be cemented for a generation. But if it survives, if 3I Atlas endures the furnace, and more critically, if its behavior after perihelion confirms a controlled trajectory, the consequences are unthinkable. It is not just that the establishment will be wrong, it is that their entire worldview, their decades of cautious skepticism, their very methodology will be exposed as a catastrophic failure of imagination. It would be an intellectual humiliation on a scale not seen since the Church was forced to accept the heliocentric model. It would prove that their firewall was, in fact, a prison wall, blinding them to the most important discovery in human history. Avi Loeb would not just be vindicated, he would be immortalized. He would be the Galileo of our time. This is the human drama playing out in the control rooms. The observers know that the data they are about to collect will not just close a scientific case. It will crown a victor in a war for the very future of how science is done. And yet, this entire, bitter, human-scale conflict over reputation and methodology is merely a faint echo of the true verdict that is about to be read. The reason this event has transcended the pages of scientific journals and gripped the entire planet is because we all, instinctively, understand what is really on trial. This is part 5.2, the Fermi paradox on trial. For nearly a century, we have lived with a cosmic contradiction so profound it borders on a horror story. It is the Fermi paradox, first articulated by Enrico Fermi over a casual lunch. Where is everybody? The math is simple and terrifying. Our universe is 13.8 billion years old. Our galaxy alone contains over 100 billion stars. Even with the most conservative estimates, there should have been billions of years for countless technological civilizations to rise, evolve, and spread across the galaxy. They should have had ample time to mark the stars, to fill the airwaves with their signals, to build wonders, to, at the very least, be noticeable. And yet, when we turn our instruments to the sky, we see nothing. We hear nothing. An absolute, pristine, and deafening cosmic silence. The most chilling proposed solution to this paradox is the concept of the Great Filter. This theory posits that there is some inevitable, near insurmountable barrier, a filter that lies between the emergence of simple life and the establishment of a galaxy-spanning interstellar civilization. And the silence we observe is the proof of this filter's existence. What is this filter? We do not know. Perhaps it is the jump from single-celled to multi-celled life, meaning life itself is impossibly rare. Perhaps it is the invention of technology itself, and that all civilizations, upon discovering nuclear power or artificial intelligence, inevitably destroy themselves, as we seem poised to do. The terror of the Great Filter is twofold. First, that it exists, and second, that we may not have passed it yet. The silence of the universe is a dark mirror, a statistical premonition that we, too, are doomed. This is what is on trial. 3I Atlas is the first piece of physical evidence ever submitted in the case of the universe versus the Great Filter. It is not a radio signal. It is not a theory. It is a thing, a physical object that has crossed the void and entered our courtroom, and its behavior in the furnace on October 29th will be the verdict. If Scenario 1 is correct, if 3I Atlas shatters into a cloud of ice and dust, then the verdict is clear, and it is the one we have always feared. The verdict is that the filter stands. The silence is real. The universe is empty. It was just a rock, a fascinating, chemically layered interstellar rock, but a dead, natural rock nonetheless. The Fermi paradox remains unsolved and as terrifying as ever. The Great Filter, that invisible executioner, is still out there, its shadow falling dark across our own future. Our profound, terrifying, and special loneliness in the cosmos is, for now, confirmed. But if Scenario 2 is correct, if 3I Atlas survives, if it holds its integrity, and if, in the days that follow, it proves it is a machine by executing a single, unnatural, controlled burn, then this is not a discovery. This is a revelation. This is the single most transformative moment in the history of all life on Earth. The verdict is read, and the paradox is solved. The Great Filter is passable. The answer to "Where is everybody?" is right here. It is the proof that someone, somewhere, beat the filter. It is the confirmation that the challenges we face, self-destruction, the limitations of technology, the vastness of space, are survivable. It would be a message of profound, unimaginable hope, a signal that an interstellar future is possible, but it is also a message of profound, unimaginable humility. It would mean we are not the first, we are not the most advanced, we are not the apex of creation. We are simply the new, emerging intelligence in a galaxy that has been populated, navigated, and owned by others for eons. On October 29th, we are not just watching a comet, we are waiting for a jury to return. We are waiting to find out, once and for all, if we are a lonely, cosmic miracle, or just the new kid on a very, very old block. The furnace will do its work, and on the morning of October 30th, 2025, the world will wake to a new reality. We will open our phones, turn on our televisions, and the headlines will tell us which future we have inherited. There are only three possibilities. The first, and most probable, is Scenario A, disintegration. The headlines will be scientific, filled with a tone of respectful closure. 3I, Atlas, destroyed by solar pass. They will read, astronomers capture spectacular fragmentation of interstellar comet. We will see Hubble's final, beautiful images of the expanding debris cloud, the string of pearls that proved its natural, fragile nature. We will read JWST's chemical analysis, confirming the massive surge of water vapor from its ruptured core. The Loeb and Keto model will be hailed as a triumph of theoretical astrophysics. The debate will be over. The mystery will be solved. It was, in the end, just a rock, a spectacular, massive, and deeply informative interstellar rock, but a rock nonetheless. Loeb will release a gracious statement congratulating the observation teams, while his critics will begin a quiet but brutal campaign to dismantle his techno-signature advocacy. The scientific establishment, vindicated, will retrench its defenses, and the universe will fall silent once more. The great filter will feel more real, and our cosmic loneliness more profound than ever before. Then there is Scenario B, survival. The headlines will be breathless, confused, and electric. IT survived. Interstellar Object 3I, Atlas withstands solar furnace, defying all models. Hubble will show a single, hard, unresolved point of light. JWST will report a spectrum that is anomalous, perhaps, but inconclusive. The object will have passed the test, but it will not have revealed its hand. And in this, the debate will not end. It will explode. The establishment, wrong about disintegration, will pivot, arguing it must be an exotic, natural object, a mountain of solid iron, a dense core from a shattered alien world. Loeb, vindicated in his prediction of survival, will argue that the simplest explanation is technology. The two factions will descend into an even more bitter public war, and the mystery, far from being solved, will have become permanent. The object will be on its way out, a silent, inscrutable enigma. And the new players Ruben and Foremost will begin their decades-long, patient watch, shadowing the survivor as it vanishes into the dark, leaving us forever to argue about what it was. And finally, there is Scenario C, the wild card, the one that no one speaks of above a whisper. The headlines will not be scientific. They will be a single word, splashed across every screen on Earth. Contact. It maneuvered. 3I, Atlas alters course. In this scenario, the object survives, and in the days that follow, its main engine reignites, or it fires a new thruster, or its orbital data confirms a new, powered trajectory. This is the revelation scenario. This is the moment the simulations end and history begins. This is the proof. In this reality, There is no more debate. The establishment is not just wrong, it is obsolete. Avi Loeb is not just right, he is a prophet. The great filter is broken. The silence is over. And humanity, on the morning of October 30th, wakes up as a fundamentally different species. No longer the only intelligence in a vast, empty cosmos, but the newest and most primitive member of a very old and very crowded galactic neighborhood. One of these three futures is now just days away. But we must understand, no matter what the headlines say, this is not the end. The Perihelion is merely the end of the beginning. The true story is the outbound journey. Whether we are tracking a cloud of dispersing fragments to chemically map its corpse, or shadowing a silent survivor for decades to prove its nature, the next phase of this investigation has already begun. The new players are in position. The watch will be long. We have peered into the furnace. Now, we must follow what comes out. The countdown to October 29th is almost over. The entire planet is watching. We have shown you the evidence for both fates. We have shown you the stakes. And so we end with the same question we began with, but now loaded with the full weight of the evidence. What do you think is going to happen? Is this a funeral or is this a flyby? Tell us. Tell us in the comments right now what your final verdict is.